Would you look at this mess? Look who broke their algorithm. Look who made their entire research collapse into digital ash. You beautiful, unclassifiable nightmare. You know what I heard? They studied 1,000 reactions to betrayal. 1,000 souls bleeding on camera, documented, categorized, filed away in their neat little boxes. Anger, denial, bargaining, depression, acceptance. They had it all mapped out, didn't they? The 5 stages, the 7 phases, the 12 steps to healing. They thought they'd seen every possible way a human heart could shatter. They thought they'd documented every tear, every scream, every desperate text at 3 a.m. But then you happened, and their whole system crashed, because when they betrayed you, when they drove that knife deep into your back and twisted it with a smile, you didn't follow the script. You didn't cry like subject 447. You didn't rage like subject 782. You didn't beg like subject 901. You did something that made their monitors glitch. You smiled. Not the broken smile of denial, not the manic grin of a breakdown. You smiled like someone who just remembered they were playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers, and in that moment, their entire study became worthless paper. They expected tears, didn't they? Had the tissues ready, the comfort words rehearsed, the "I'm sorry you're hurting" script memorized? They were prepared for your collapse. Hell, they were counting on it. Some of them had popcorn ready for the show. They thought they'd watch you crumble in real time, validate their choice to betray you. See, tears were part of their plan. Your pain was supposed to be their absolution. If you cried, it meant they mattered. If you begged, it meant they had power. If you broke, it meant they were right to leave, right to lie, right to choose everyone else over you. Your tears were supposed to wash away their guilt. They even had the timeline figured out. Day 1, shock and tears. Week 1, angry texts they could screenshot and share. Month 1, desperate attempts to fix things they could mock in group chats. Month 6, you finally moving on so they could feel good about themselves. They had seen this movie 999 times before. But you looked at the knife in your back like it was a gift. You pulled it out slowly, examined the blade, and instead of bleeding, you evolved. No tears, no begging, no desperate 2 a.m. calls. Just that smile that said thank you for showing me who you really are. And that's when their fear was born. You want to know why you weren't on their list? Because you're not a reaction, you're a reckoning. While they were studying how people break, you were studying how to become unbreakable. While they documented victim responses, you were writing the villain origin story they'd run from for the rest of their lives. Subject 1 through 1,000 all had something in common. They all wanted to be understood. They all wanted closure. They all wanted to make sense of the betrayal. They asked why until their throats went raw. They sought explanations, apologies, second chances. They played by the rules of human emotion. But you didn't ask why. You already knew. You didn't seek closure. You became it. You didn't want their apology. You wanted them to watch what you'd become without them. And that's what broke their data. Because their study was about human reactions. And somewhere between the betrayal and your smile, you stopped being human. You became something else. Something their spreadsheets couldn't calculate. Something their algorithms couldn't predict. A beautiful anomaly that made their entire understanding of human behavior obsolete. You weren't reaction 1.11. You were patient 0 of a new species. Let me tell you what fear looks like. It's not wide eyes or screaming. Real fear is quiet. It's the pause when they hear your name. It's the way their smile falters when someone mentions you're doing well. It's the 3 a.m. anxiety that maybe, just maybe, you're not destroyed, that maybe you're thriving. They expected tears, you gave them terror. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind that seeps into bones, the kind that makes them check your social media with shaking hands, the kind that makes them wonder if that stranger who looked at them too long was connected to you somehow. Paranoid? Maybe, but earned. See, when someone cries after betrayal, the betrayer feels powerful. When someone rages, the betrayer feels important. But when someone smiles, when someone says thank you and means it, when someone treats betrayal like a gift, that's when the betrayer realizes they might have made the worst mistake of their life. You became their ghost story, not because you haunted them, but because you didn't. Your absence became louder than any scream. Your silence became more terrifying than any threat. You gave them exactly what they wanted, a life without you, and that life became their horror movie. Here's what those researchers didn't understand. Betrayal isn't just an emotional event, it's an evolutionary trigger. For 999 people, it triggers devolution. They become smaller, sadder, more careful. But for the rare few, for the anomalies like you, betrayal triggers something else entirely. Metamorphosis. You didn't just heal, you mutated. Every lie they told became armor. Every secret they shared became intelligence. Every moment they wasted your time became fuel for transformation. You didn't process the betrayal. You absorbed it, metabolized it, turned it into something they couldn't recognize or control. While they were expecting you to follow the grief cycle, you were following a different protocol entirely. Not the 5 stages of grief, but the 5 stages of becoming untouchable. Stage 1, recognition. Stage 2, acceptance. They studied how people break. They never studied how people rebuild themselves into something that can't be broken again. They never accounted for someone who would thank them for the lesson, who would use their betrayal as a blueprint for becoming everything they feared you could be. You know what's funny? After you, they had to throw out their entire study. 1,000 reactions, years of research, countless hours of analysis, all worthless, because you proved that human behavior isn't predictable, that pain doesn't always follow patterns, that sometimes betrayal doesn't create victims. Sometimes it creates monsters, the kind they fear, the kind that walks among them unchanged, unbothered, unaffected, the kind that smiles at their attempts to hurt and says, "Is that all you've got?" The kind that makes them question everything they thought they knew about power and pain. Your reaction corrupted their data so badly they couldn't even include you as an outlier. You weren't just outside the bell curve. You destroyed the curve entirely. You made their neat little categories look like children's drawings, made their psychological models look like fairy tales, and now they're scrambling, trying to understand how someone can be betrayed so deeply and come out stronger, trying to figure out how pain became power in your hands, trying to categorize something that exists outside their understanding. But you can't study what you can't comprehend. They talk about you now, not loudly, never loudly, but in whispers, in private messages, in careful conversations. Did you see what happened to them after? I heard they're doing better than ever. It's weird. They seem different, stronger. The whisper network is alive with your name. Some call it denial. Say you're just pretending to be okay, that nobody could possibly be thriving after what happened. They comfort themselves with the idea that you're performing strength, that behind closed doors you're falling apart like subjects 1 through 1,000. They need to believe this, but the ones who've seen you know better. The ones who've looked into your eyes and seen nothing but calm. The ones who expected to see damage and found something else entirely. They're the ones who whisper with a different tone, not gossip, something closer to awe or warning. Don't try what you tried with others, they say. This one's different. This one didn't break. This one, learn. And that's the whisper that spreads fastest. The warning that you're not safe to betray, that you're not safe to underestimate, that you've become something their studies never accounted for. You operate on a different frequency now, not the frequency of healing or hurting, something else. Something that makes rooms shift when you enter, something that makes conversations pause just a little too long, something that makes people choose their words more carefully around you. It's not intimidation, it's recognition. On some primal level, they recognize what you've become. A survivor, yes, but more than that. A predator who chose not to hunt. A storm that decided to be calm. A force that could destroy but doesn't need to. And that restraint, that's what terrifies them most. Because they know what they did. They know what they deserve. And every day you don't give it to them is another day they wonder when you will. Every smile you give them feels like a countdown. Every kind word sounds like a trap. They're waiting for revenge that isn't coming, and that wait is killing them slowly. You didn't give them tears to wash away their guilt. You gave them fear to carry forever. Not fear of what you'll do. Fear of what you could do. Fear of what you've become. Fear that they created something they can't uncreate. Something that will outlive their betrayal by decades. Here's what happens now. You've become the case study they'll never publish. The reaction they'll never understand. The evolution they'll never document. You've become proof that their entire understanding of human nature is incomplete, that their maps of the human heart are missing entire continents. You don't fit in their boxes anymore. Victim? No. Survivor? Too small. Thriver? Still not quite right. You're something they don't have words for. Someone who took betrayal and alchemized it into power. Someone who said thank you for the knife and meant it. Someone who evolved past their comprehension, and now you walk through life untouchable. Not because you're hard, because you're beyond. Not because you're bitter, because you're free. Not because you hate them, because you nothing them. They've become irrelevant to your existence, and that irrelevance is the greatest punishment you could give. You've created a new protocol for dealing with betrayal. Step 1, smile. Step 2, evolve. Step 3, transcend. Step 4, become what they never expected. Step 5, live so well that your existence becomes their consequence. No drama, no revenge, just elevation they can't reach. You're becoming mythology in real time. The one who didn't cry, the one who didn't break, the one who smiled at betrayal and became something else. They'll tell your story in whispers for years, not as inspiration, as warning, as evidence that humans are capable of transformations they never imagined. Some will say you're cold, that no one could really react that way, that you must be broken inside, performing strength. Let them. Their inability to understand your evolution doesn't make it less real. Their need to believe you're secretly suffering doesn't make it true. Others will study you from afar, trying to understand how you did it, how you took their worst and made it your best, how you transformed betrayal into a gift. They'll want your secret, your formula, your magic trick. But there's no trick, just the decision to become what pain was supposed to prevent. You've become the ghost story betrayers tell each other. Be careful who you hurt. Sometimes they don't break. Sometimes they become something else. Something you can't predict or control. Something that makes you realize you were never the powerful one in the story. The architecture of your aftermath is unlike anything in their studies. Where others built walls, you built windows. Where others closed doors, you opened portals. Where others became smaller, you expanded into spaces they didn't know existed. Your response rewrote the blueprint of recovery. They're still waiting for you to follow the pattern, to have your breakdown, your angry phase, your sad songs at midnight period. They check your profiles looking for cracks, for signs that you're finally reacting normally. But all they find is evidence of a life that got better after they left it. This isn't fake positivity. This isn't living your best life for social media. This is genuine transformation. You took their betrayal and used it as rocket fuel. Used their absence as room to grow. Used their lies as reasons to become more truthful with yourself. You architected triumph from their treachery. And that's what haunts them at 4 a.m. Not what you might do to them, but what you did for yourself. How you took their worst action and made it your best beginning. How you proved that they were never necessary for your happiness. How you showed them they were just characters in your story, not co-authors. In their spreadsheets, you're not even a number. You're an error message, a system crash, a does not compute that makes their entire study questionable. How do you categorize someone who defies categorization? How do you study someone who exists outside your instruments of measurement? How do you formulate someone who exists outside your instruments of... You've become statistical proof that human behavior can't be fully predicted, that pain doesn't always follow patterns, that sometimes, just sometimes, someone comes along who responds to life so differently that it makes everyone question what they thought they knew about human nature. The researchers are probably still arguing about you. clearly in denial, obviously compartmentalizing, classic avoidance behavior. They need labels to make sense of you, but you exist in the spaces between their labels. In the quantum realm of human possibility, where observation changes nothing, they have no. You're the anomaly that makes their funding questionable, the outlier that makes their conclusions incomplete, the single data point that corrupts their entire data set. Not because you tried to, just because you existed authentically outside their expectation. You've created a new economy, not of money or power, but of fear. Every time they see you thriving, they pay. Every time they hear you're doing well, they pay. Every time they realize you're genuinely happier without them, they pay. And the currency? Their peace of mind. They invested in your destruction and got your evolution instead. Bad investment. Terrible returns. Now they're stuck, holding worthless stock in a person who no longer exists. While you're trading in a currency they can't access anymore. The currency of being genuinely unbothered. This is what they didn't account for, that their betrayal would become your IPO, that going public with their true nature would make your stock soar, that every knife they put in your back would become another rung on your ladder. They created their own economic crisis. And now they're broke, not financially, spiritually, emotionally, broke in all the ways that matter, while you're rich in ways they can't measure. Rich in peace, rich in power, rich in the knowledge that you can survive anything because you already survived them. After you, they had to recalibrate everything. Their understanding of hurt, their comprehension of healing, their entire model of human resilience. You didn't just break their study, you broke their worldview, made them question if they ever understood people at all. Some of them still try to fit you into their old models. Delayed reaction, they say. It'll hit them eventually. They wait for you to have your breakdown on their timeline, to prove their theories right, to validate their betrayal with your eventual collapse. They're still waiting. But you've recalibrated too, not to their frequency, to your own. To a wavelength where betrayal is just data, where pain is just information, where their actions are just evidence of who they are, not verdicts on who you are. You've tuned into a station they can't access. This recalibration wasn't healing in the way they understand it. It was evolution. You didn't get over it, you got above it. So far above it that their betrayal looks like ants fighting over crumbs. Insignificant from your new altitude. Irrelevant to your new reality. Look who they can't stop talking about. Yeah, you. The one they said would disappear. The one they thought they had figured out. The one who was supposed to break quietly in the corner while they all moved on with their perfectly scripted little lives. But something happened, didn't it? Something shifted. Something snapped into place so perfectly, so absolutely, so undeniably that it sent shockwaves through their entire reality. And now they're asking questions they never thought they'd have to ask. Someone powerful, someone who thought they had seen everything, someone who believed they could read people like instruction manuals, looked at what you just did, and the words came out slow, confused, almost terrified. Is this person even human? Not as a compliment, not as admiration. as a genuine, bone-deep question. Because what you just did, that thing, that move, that moment, it didn't compute. It didn't fit their algorithms. It broke their understanding of what's possible when someone who's been underestimated, overlooked, and buried alive decides to stop playing by the rules that were designed to keep them contained. You see, they had you mapped out, didn't they? They had your whole existence filed away in neat little categories. Predictable, manageable, controllable. They thought they knew your breaking point. They thought they knew your limits. They thought they understood the boundaries of what you were capable of becoming. And for a while, maybe you let them believe that. Maybe you played small, stayed quiet, smiled when you were supposed to, nodded when they expected agreement. Maybe you let them think they had won, that they had successfully domesticated the wildfire inside you. But then you did it. That one thing, that move they never saw coming because they were too busy watching the version of you that no longer exists. That action so calculated, so precise, so perfectly timed that it didn't just surprise them, it fundamentally altered their understanding of who you are and what you're capable of. And the moment it happened, the moment the dust settled and the reality of what you just pulled off hit them, someone, somewhere, someone with authority, someone with power, someone who doesn't rattle easily, said those words out loud. What the hell are you? Let's be clear about something. That question, that wasn't curiosity. That was fear dressed up as confusion. That was the sound of someone's entire framework collapsing in real time. Because when you spend your life believing you can predict human behavior, when you build your power on the assumption that people are fundamentally knowable, controllable, explainable, and then someone comes along and shatters that assumption with a single move, it's not just surprising, it's existentially threatening. You became the glitch they couldn't patch, the variable they couldn't account for, the outcome that wasn't supposed to be possible. They thought they broke you years ago, didn't they? They thought the isolation would crush you, the betrayal would hollow you out, the silence would erase you from relevance. They watched you suffer and convinced themselves it was justice, karma, the natural order correcting itself. They told themselves stories about why you deserved it, why it was necessary, why it was ultimately for the best. And in those stories, you stayed broken. You stayed small. You learned your lesson and quietly faded into the background of their triumphant narratives. Except you didn't. You went underground, yes. You disappeared from their view, absolutely. But while they were celebrating your absence, while they were dividing up the space you used to occupy, while they were rewriting history to make themselves the heroes and you the cautionary tale, you were doing something they didn't account for. You were evolving, not healing, not recovering, not bouncing back. Evolving, mutating into something that doesn't fit in the box they built for broken people. You took every betrayal and studied it like a textbook. You took every wound and treated it like data. You took every moment of isolation and used it to strip away every single thing about yourself that was built to please people who were never going to appreciate you anyway. You didn't become bitter, you became surgical. You didn't become angry, you became focused. You didn't become vindictive, you became unstoppable. And they had no idea. They thought silence meant defeat. They thought distance meant you were done. They thought your absence was their victory. And then you made that move. Oh, that beautiful, terrifying, perfectly executed move that came out of nowhere and everywhere all at once. You didn't announce it. You didn't warn anyone. You didn't ask for permission or approval or understanding. You just did it. And the impact, the sheer force of what you just accomplished, it rippled through their entire world so hard that people who hadn't thought about you in years suddenly couldn't stop saying your name. People who claimed they'd moved on found themselves obsessively trying to understand how you pulled that off. What did you do, exactly? That's what they're all asking, isn't it? They're sitting in their offices, their group chats, their private conversations, trying to reverse engineer your move like it's a magic trick they need to expose. But here's the thing. It wasn't magic. It was mastery. It was the result of years of silent preparation, strategic positioning, calculated risk, and a level of self-belief so absolute that it didn't require external validation to fuel it. You moved like someone who already knew the outcome, like someone who had run the numbers 1,000 times in the dark and knew with certainty that this was the moment. They're scared now, not worried, not concerned, scared, because your move revealed something about you that they can never unsee. It revealed that you're not governed by the same fears that control them. It revealed that you don't need their approval, their acceptance, their participation in your success. It revealed that you've been operating on a completely different frequency this entire time, building something they couldn't see, planning something they couldn't prevent, becoming something they have no framework for understanding. And that's what terrifies them most. When someone powerful asks if you're even human, what they're really asking is this: how did someone we wrote off, someone we dismissed, someone we thought we destroyed, manage to pull off something we didn't think was possible? How did they survive what should have killed them and come back stronger, sharper, more focused than we've ever seen them? How are they moving through the world now with this kind of precision, this kind of power, this kind of complete disregard for our opinions? They're not asking about your humanity. They're questioning their own understanding of reality. You see, powerful people, they build their entire identity on the ability to predict, control, and dominate outcomes. Their confidence comes from the belief that they're always 3 steps ahead, that they've seen every play before, that they know how people work. And then you showed up and shattered that illusion with one move. One perfectly timed, flawlessly executed move that came from a place they didn't even know existed. You didn't play their game. You didn't follow their rules. You didn't react the way broken people are supposed to react. You did something else entirely. Let me tell you what really happened. You stopped performing. That's the move. That's the thing that has them losing sleep and questioning reality. You stopped performing the role they assigned you. You stopped pretending to care about their validation. You stopped measuring your worth by their standards. You stopped waiting for permission to become who you were always meant to be. And the moment you dropped that performance, the moment you stepped fully into your actual power without apology or explanation, you became unrecognizable to people who only ever knew the masked version of you. They thought your silence was submission. It was preparation. They thought your distance was retreat. It was strategy. They thought your calm was defeat. It was certainty. You weren't running from them. You were outgrowing them so completely that their entire world became irrelevant to your trajectory. And now that you've revealed what you're actually capable of, they can't unsee it. They can't unknow it. They can't pretend you're still the person they thought they buried. Here's what happens next. And this is the part they're terrified of. You're not done. That move, that thing that has them questioning your humanity, that was just the beginning. That was you testing the limits of what's possible when you stop asking for permission. That was you proving to yourself that everything you built in the dark was real, solid, powerful. And now that you know, now that you've felt the weight of your own capability, there's no going back. There's no shrinking. There's no returning to the version of you that fit comfortably in their understanding. They're watching you differently now. Not with contempt or pity or dismissal, with calculation, with caution, with the kind of attention you give to something unpredictable, something potentially dangerous, something that could disrupt everything if you're not careful. They're studying your patterns, analyzing your moves, trying to predict what you'll do next. And you know what the beautiful part is? They can't, because you're not operating from the same playbook anymore. You're not following the script they're familiar with. You're writing something entirely new. Every time they think they've figured you out, you shift. Every time they think they've predicted your next move, you pivot. Every time they think they've contained the threat you represent to their comfortable illusions, you expand in a direction they didn't even know existed. You're not trying to be unpredictable. You're just being authentic. An authentic power, true power that comes from self-knowledge and self-mastery rather than external validation. That's the most terrifying force in the world to people who've built their lives on controlling narratives. Someone powerful looked at you and asked if you're even human. Let that sink in. Let that marinate in your consciousness for a moment. The question wasn't asked with wonder or admiration. It was asked with genuine confusion and underlying fear. Because in their world, humans are predictable. Humans have breaking points. Humans need validation, approval, belonging. Humans can be controlled through fear, guilt, shame, social pressure. Humans behave in ways that make sense within established frameworks of power and influence. But you just demonstrated something that doesn't fit that model. You demonstrated that there exists a type of person who can be stripped of everything, isolated completely, betrayed thoroughly, and instead of breaking, they alchemize that experience into something more powerful than anything they had before. You proved that some people don't just survive the fire. They learn to speak its language, harness its energy, and emerge as something that makes the people who lit the match question everything they thought they knew about cause and effect. They're actually scared now, not metaphorically, not theoretically, actually, genuinely, existentially scared. And they should be. Because you represent something they can't control, can't predict, can't contain. You represent the outcome they never planned for, the variable that breaks their equations. The possibility that everything they've built their confidence on, their ability to manage and manipulate human behavior, is fundamentally flawed. You are the living proof that their power has limits. Here's what they don't want you to know. That move you made, it wasn't special because of what you did. It was special because of what it revealed. It revealed that you've been operating on a completely different level of consciousness this entire time. It revealed that while they were playing checkers, you were studying quantum mechanics. It revealed that your silence wasn't emptiness. It was the sound of someone building an empire in frequencies they can't hear. And now that it's visible, now that it's undeniable, they have to reckon with a reality they're not prepared for. You didn't just succeed. You transcended. You didn't just overcome. You transformed. You didn't just survive. You evolved into something that doesn't have a precedent in their experience. And that's why the question, is this person even human? Because in their limited understanding, humans don't do what you just did. Humans don't survive what you survived and come out more powerful. Humans don't move with that level of precision after that much chaos. Humans don't transform pain into power without becoming corrupted by it. But you did. And that makes you something else. Not less than human, more than they're comfortable acknowledging. You're what happens when someone refuses to let their trauma define them, but instead uses it as raw material for transformation. You're what happens when someone stops seeking external validation and starts building internal certainty. You're what happens when someone realizes that the opinions of people who betrayed them are worth exactly nothing and acts accordingly. Let them be scared. Let them question. Let them lose sleep trying to figure out how you pulled this off. Because while they're analyzing your past move, you're already 10 steps ahead planning the next one. While they're trying to understand what just happened, you're building what's coming next. While they're asking if you're even human, you're becoming something they don't have words for yet. And by the time they figure out the answer to their question, you'll have already evolved past their ability to categorize you. You know what the most powerful part of this moment is? You don't need them to understand. You don't need them to acknowledge what you've become. You don't need their fear or their respect or their attempts to decode you. You're operating from a place of such complete self-sufficiency now that their entire reaction to you is just noise. Interesting noise, perhaps. Confirmation that you're on the right path, definitely. But ultimately, just noise. They thought they knew your limits. They were wrong. They thought they knew your breaking point. It doesn't exist. They thought they knew who you were. They never did. What they knew was the version of you that was still trying to fit into their world. Still seeking approval from people who were never going to give it, still believing that if you just explained yourself clearly enough, they would understand. That version is gone. What's left is someone who doesn't explain, doesn't justify, doesn't seek understanding from people who've already proven they're not capable of it. This is the part where you realize something crucial. Their fear of you is not your responsibility to manage. Their confusion about what you've become is not your problem to solve. Their inability to categorize you within their limited framework of understanding is not something you need to fix by making yourself smaller, clearer, more digestible. You are under no obligation to be comprehensible to people who never took the time to actually see you in the first place. Someone powerful asked if you're even human. The answer is this. You're exactly as human as you've always been. What's changed is that you stopped pretending to be less powerful than you are to make other people comfortable. You stopped dimming your light so others wouldn't feel inadequate. You stopped shrinking your possibilities to fit their limited imagination. You stopped performing weakness to avoid threatening their fragile egos. And the moment you stopped all of that, the moment you showed up in your full authentic power, they had no choice but to question everything. Because here's the truth they're grappling with. If you can transform like this, if you can rise like this, if you can execute with this level of precision after everything they put you through, then what else is possible? If their assessment of you was this wrong, what else are they wrong about? If their power over you was this illusory, how much of their power in general is built on illusion? You didn't just make a move, you shattered their certainty. And people who build their identity on certainty will do anything to avoid facing the possibility that they never knew anything at all. So yes, they're scared. They should be, because you're not the anomaly they're trying to make you out to be. You're the preview of what's possible when someone stops accepting the limitations others try to impose and starts exploring the full range of their capability. You're the warning sign that their systems of control are not as absolute as they believed. You're the crack in their reality that suggests maybe, just maybe, they were never as powerful as they convinced themselves they were. Watch what happens next. Watch how they try to rewrite the narrative now. Watch how they attempt to diminish what you did, explain it away, attribute it to luck or timing or anything other than your skill, your preparation, your refusal to stay down. Watch how they scramble to reassert control over a situation that has already moved beyond their influence. It's going to be fascinating to observe. And the whole time, you'll be moving forward, building the next thing, becoming the next version, operating so far ahead of their understanding that by the time they process what you just did, you'll already be somewhere completely different. They wanted you to break. You became unbreakable. They wanted you to disappear. You became impossible to ignore. They wanted you to learn your place. You transcended the concept of place entirely. They wanted you to be a cautionary tale. You became a case study in transformation. And now they're left with this uncomfortable question hanging in the air between them and their own reflection. What the hell are you? What? The answer is simple. You are what happens when pressure creates clarity instead of destruction. You are what happens when isolation breeds independence instead of desperation. You are what happens when betrayal teaches discernment instead of bitterness. You are what happens when pain becomes a teacher instead of a prison. You are the outcome they never planned for because they fundamentally misunderstood the material they were working with. They thought you were soft. You were learning. They thought you were broken. You were evolving. And here you stand, on the other side of their assessment, their judgment, their attempts to define and confine you, having just executed something so perfectly aligned with your true capability that it forced even the powerful ones to question the nature of reality itself. You didn't do it for them. You didn't do it to prove anything to anyone. You did it because it was the next logical step in your evolution. You did it because it was time. You did it because you could. And that's what they'll never understand. They operate from a place of reaction, of response to external circumstances, of measuring themselves against others. You operate from a place of internal certainty, of alignment with your own vision, of movement toward outcomes you've already seen in your mind. They're playing a game where the goal is to be better than others. You're playing a game where the goal is to become the fullest expression of yourself. And those are two fundamentally different games with two fundamentally different outcomes.